Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
With that one ill-conceived, offhanded comment, Blizzard launched 1,000,001 self-righteous tweets, angry Reddit posts, and scathing memes. The announcement of Diablo Immortal at BlizzCon 2018 was one of the biggest unforced errors in the recent gaming history, managing to simultaneously piss off many of the hardcore fans in attendance and go completely under the radar of the more casual mobile player base that the game was clearly targeting. Cut to 4 years later, and Diablo Immortal is finally here. And yes, it's available on PC as well. But the announcement was not the end of things. Complaints and concerns about everything from oversimplifying the gameplay to intense monetization have followed Diablo Immortal, to the point that it can make it difficult to cut through the noise and talk about the actual game under all of this hype and hatred. It's a shame, because that actual game is pretty fantastic most of the time. Alright, before we jump into the actual review, I just want to give you all a little bit of context here. Diablo Immortal currently sits at 5.8 out of 10 on TapTap with more than 2,000 reviews. And the comments for the most part don't look good either. Most of the players are complaining about heavy pay-to-win mechanics, optimization problems, and a whopping 12.4 gigabytes of data to download. Things on Metacritic look even more grim, with the user review score at only 0.5 out of 10. With so much controversy going on around the game, it's an extremely difficult task to weigh all the strengths and weaknesses of Diablo Immortal. But let's get more into the details in this review and try to get somewhat objective perspective on things here.
This is Sanctuary.
Set in between the events of the second and third Diablo games, Immortal shifts from the small group instanced focus of the mainline series to a more massively multiplayer style. Players take on the role of heroes working with series mainstay, Deckard Cain, to travel the world and track down shards of the World Stone. In gameplay terms, this is essentially the exact thing the Diablo games are known for. Trouncing around a variety of swamps, crypts, forests, caves, and other spooky locations and massacring hordes of bad guys. The more powerful the enemies you defeat, the higher chance they'll drop a pile of loot. And the more piles of loot you collect, the more likely you are to find an upgrade to your gear. Rinse, repeat, and keep on repeating. Over and over, probably for way more hours than you intended. Welcome to the endless treadmill that is Diablo. From visuals to enemies to environments, it seems stunningly clear that Diablo Immortal is largely built off of lightly scaled down assets from Diablo 3. If you already sunk hundreds of hours into that title and were expecting something totally new, you may be disappointed, but for my part, I mostly just couldn't help being impressed. It's not just that Immortal looks great, but I cannot believe how near perfectly the developers at NetEase and Blizzard have translated the feel of playing Diablo 3 to mobile. In almost every way that matters, the moment-to-moment gameplay is essentially a one-to-one conversion of some of my fondest hack-and-slash memories from the last decade. It's an astounding and impressive feat to have pulled off. Now, before you rush to the comments to yell at me, I should get to the part of Diablo Immortal that's astounding in an altogether different way: monetization. In the case of Diablo Immortal, as with many free-to-play mobile games, monetization is handled along several simultaneous streams. First, there is the now traditional Battle Pass, which offers 40 ranks of rewards for completing tasks to fill up a bar. In addition to the Battle Pass, players can shell out for the Boon of Plenty. Above that offers more inventory space, access to the market from anywhere in the game, and additional login rewards each day. But the Boon of Plenty is not a permanent boost. Similarly to the Battle Pass, it will only last 30 days before players are prompted to pay another $10 to keep the good times rolling. These two parallel semi-subscription type purchases might strike some long-time Diablo players as annoying or less than ideal, but they're not the biggest problem. And that comes in the form of Diablo Immortal's primary paid currency: Eternal Orbs. These are purchased in a shop that will look familiar to anyone who spent some time in the free-to-play mobile game space. Once purchased directly or earned from the Battle Pass or Boon of Plenty, Eternal Orbs are primarily used for two purposes: for buying cosmetics to show off on your character, and for buying legendary crests. And it's that last one that's causing a lot of anger. You see, legendary crests are directly tied into one of Diablo Immortal's main endgame activities, Elder Rifts. These randomized dungeons can be modified using legendary crests, and doing so will guarantee that the players running them are rewarded with a random legendary gem at the end. And those legendary gems? Naturally, they can be socketed into your armor and weapons and upgraded to provide incremental boost to your stats. Popular YouTuber Bellular has estimated that if a player were to open up their wallet and spend as much money as it takes to fully max out their character's potential, it could cost as much as 110,000 US dollars. That's obviously an eye-popping figure, and it has caused another wave of fury, negative user reviews, and yes, excellent memes.
The World Stone.
This isn't a full-hearted defense of Blizzard or Diablo Immortal, but I do genuinely believe there is also some parts of this controversy that are being overblown or coming from an audience that is less familiar with mobile games. From my perspective, as someone who's been playing mobile games that are even more blatantly pay-to-win than Diablo Immortal for years now, I think some players are missing the ways in which this system is designed not necessarily just to encourage outrageous spending, but to encourage players to stick around, to give them a reason to keep coming back, and progressing their character for months or even years to come. Is it a good system for that purpose? Perhaps not, but it may come down to flawed game design as much or more than it comes down to pure greed. And here's my biggest frustration with all this pay-to-win mess. They didn't need to do this. I don't mean that Diablo Immortal shouldn't have had any microtransactions or paid elements, but Immortal is a fantastic enough game on its own. And the Battle Pass, Boon of Plenty, and paid cosmetics are enough that this game could be a massive financial success without pulling these shady tactics. It makes the game look worse. It makes the companies behind it look worse. It pushes players who might otherwise be passionate away, and it muddles the legitimacy of the otherwise really interesting player versus player elements that have been added to the endgame loop. As already mentioned, weighing the strengths and weaknesses of Diablo Immortal feels like an impossibly difficult task, especially with the years of negative buzz surrounding the game's reveal echoing in my brain. On the one hand, Blizzard and NetEase have done a better job than I ever could have imagined at translating the gameplay of the best hack-and-slash franchise ever made to mobile phones. But on the other hand, it's all tainted by such poor monetization and endgame system design choices. Diablo Immortal should be an absolute triumph for Blizzard and yet another piece of evidence in the growing proof that mobile games can match up to the quality of and satisfaction afforded by console and PC games. It should be a goddamn victory lap, and yet all anyone can talk about, and for good reason, is how you need to open up a new Roth IRA just to save up enough cash to eventually be able to deck your character out in the best gear possible. As Diablo Immortal is patched and monetization is tweaked, it will hopefully improve, and even in its current state, it's worth playing casually. Just try not to get sucked into the race to the top. I promise, there are better things to drop 100 grand on. And that's it for our review of Diablo Immortal. Please let us know in the comments about your experience with the game, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to press like and subscribe to our channel. For more coverage about Diablo Immortal, please consider checking our other articles on TapTap through the links below. As always, thank you for sticking around, and we'll see you next time.